Seeing at 6 p.m., I'd like to start the August 2nd, 2023 regular meeting of the Kena City Council to order. I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening and ask that if you're able, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Winger,
Present.
Councilmember Sonart,
Here.
Councilmember Naxted,
Here.
Councilmember Dothett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Baisden, Councilmember Askin,
Here.
Mayor Gabriel.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Council, before we get to agenda approval, I'd like to call your attention to a laydown you should have in front of you with requested additions to the packet. Action add to item E3, resolution number 2223-49, public comment requested by the planning director. Action add to item H8, discussion action, radio advertising, informational memo requested by Councilmember Winger, and public comment requested by Councilmember Dothett. And finally, action add to item P, KPB resolution 2023-53, establishing a voter turnout and working group to explore actionable options and ideas aimed at increasing awareness, participation, and voting in local election. That was requested by the city clerk. Pleasure, council. Councilman Naxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move for approval of the agenda and the consent agenda with inclusion of the 3 action items noted.
I'll second.
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Is there any requested amendments to the agenda or consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk, please read the consent agenda into the record.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Approval of the regular meeting minutes of July 5th, 2023, introduced by the city clerk. New business action approval, bills to be ratified, brought to you by the administration. New business action approval, assignment and assumption of lease agreement, Lot 5, Block 1, Gusty Subdivision, Edition Number 1, amended to Braden Ellis, brought to you by the administration. Action approval, amending an employment agreement between the City of Kenai and City Manager Terry Eubanks, brought to you by Mayor Gabriel. Introduction of ordinance number 3365-2023, increasing estimated FY 2023 revenues and appropriations in the General Fund Police Department and accepting a grant from the Alaska High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area for drug investigation overtime expenditures, brought to you by the administration. Public hearing scheduled for August 16th, 2023. Ordinance number 3366-2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the General Fund Planning Department to complete rezone of the Kenai waterfront area as identified in the 2022 Kenai Waterfront Revitalization Assessment, brought to you by Councilmember Naxted. Public hearing on August 16th, 2023. Ordinance number 3367-2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the General Fund Street Department for award of a contract to replace public sidewalks at 815 Frontage Road, brought to you by the administration. Public hearing on August 16th, 2023, and that is your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anybody from the general public like to speak to any item that is on the consent agenda, which was just read into the record by the city clerk? We got anybody online here today? Thank you. Seeing no one wishing to speak to any item on the consent agenda, I'll bring it back to council. Agenda and consent agenda approval was unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the agenda and consent agenda are approved. Tonight we have no scheduled administrative reports. We have no scheduled public comments. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to the council at this time on any item that is not on the agenda or consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to item E1, public hearings. Ordinance number 3363-2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the Water and Sewer Capital Project Fund for replacing of an existing Cemetery Creek culvert with a fish passage culvert requested by administration. And we don't normally do this, but we will try to approve this, introduce it and approve it, enact it this evening. At the same time, and I presume there's a time crunch on this, Mr. Eubank, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. So first up, we'll have a motion for introduction. Councilmember Axon.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to introduce ordinance 3364, 2023. Request unanimous consent.
I'll second.
Discussion on the motion? Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, that motion is approved. Next up is a motion for second reading. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Axon.
Thank you, Mayor. I move for a second reading of ordinance 3364, 2023, and request unanimous consent.
I'll second.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, that motion is approved. So now we have on the floor ordinance number 3364-2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the Water and Sewer Capital Project Fund for replacement of an existing cemetery culvert, creek culvert with a fish passage culvert. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Axton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to enact ordinance 3364, 2023.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to ordinance number 3364-2023? No one online? No one here in chambers. We'll bring it back to council. Comments from council? Councilmember Axon.
Thank you. I'd just like to have an overview from our city manager for the record. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Naxted. So my exposure to this potential project started in probably late December last year. I met with the former city manager, Mr. Ostrander, and a representative from U.S. Fish and Wildlife to talk about salmon smolt in what we have dubbed Cemetery Creek. A lot of that creek is generated, the flow from that creek is generated as the outflow out of the city's air floodplain basin on the airport. Fish and Game, U.S. Fish and Wildlife actually went into that creek in summer of 2022 and placed some fish traps early in the year. And that creek had some of the highest smolt counts for both Chinook and coho salmon that they found in the lower Kenai River. It's not a creek in which fish are spawning. It's a place where these salmon smolt are coming down from their spawning grounds upriver, and they're, for whatever reason, they really like it, and they're rearing in that creek. But there's significant quantities of those salmon in there. Fish and Wildlife has determined there's a culvert that goes under a city water main. That water main parallels the spur highway where Cemetery Creek comes under the spur highway there. It was installed when we put that water main in. And during certain water flows, that culvert's become an impediment to the passage of those smolt. So they'd like to see that replaced. About a month ago, the planner, myself, and representatives from the Kenaitze tribe and U.S. Fish and Wildlife went again did a site visit to the creek, and they pulled a couple of traps and found again significant numbers of these were coho smolt at that time. I think what's interesting is the smolt were of varying ages, which this all had to be explained to me. They were of varying ages, which meant that those fish are actually overwintering in there. A lot of them, there were 1- and 2-year-old silver salmon smolt in there. So it's a really productive creek for it. So anyways, Fish and Wildlife would like to see that a project to replace our culvert that goes under our water main. Partnering with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and hopefully to be partnering with Kenaitze to make application for funds to construct or to do the actual construction of that replacement. U.S. Fish and Wildlife fronted $25,000 to the city, required a $5,000 match, which I have requested from the Kenai Community Foundation from Silver Salmon Derby proceeds. To provide that $5,000 match will give us the funds to do a schematic design to about 35% level and get cost estimates. With that information, we're hoping that the tribe will apply for some federal grants this fall to replace that culvert. That created the sense of urgency or the timeline for this, so we're trying to get some engineering done here relatively quickly to get to a preliminary stage on that design. All the funds are provided by U.S. Fish and Wildlife and proceeds from the Silver Salmon Derby.
Thank you, Mr. Eubank. Any further discussion, comments? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sonard?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxted?
Yes.
Councilmember Dothit?
Yes.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes and 0 no votes. Ordinance 3364, 2023 is enacted.
Thank you. Next up, we have item D2, resolution number 2023-48, approving and development incentives for lease of the airport reserve lands between the City of Kenai and Schilling Rentals, LLC on Lot 3, Block 1, General Aviation Apron Number 1, as amended. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt Resolution 2023-48.
I'll second.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2023-48? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments from council? Councilmember Naxted.
It's my understanding that that Schilling Rentals did the adequate amount of earthwork on the project to warrant this, and it's part of our leasing code. Is that correct, City Manager?
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Naxted, I'm not confident that the work has actually been completed. Maybe it has at this point, but I do know that we did have an engineer, licensed engineer, that estimated the value of the work once it to be completed at approximately $208,000, which would support the 5 years of lease incentives on the property.
Further discussion?
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2023-48 is adopted. That brings us to item E3, resolution number 2023-49, declaring the rights-of-way of Char Circle is dedicated on Park View subdivision plat number KN 79-156 and City Park subdivision number 2, plat number KN 2007-149, and a portion of South Spruce Street as dedication on Parkview subdivision, plat number KK 79-156, are no longer needed for a public purpose and consenting to a vacation of the rights of way. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt Resolution 2023-49.
I'll second.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2023-49? Mr. Tungsten. Just state your name and whether you're a Kenai City resident for the record.
My name's Ryan Tunseth. I live at 2815 Bryson Avenue in Kenai. I also work in Kenai, own a business in Kenai. I also happen to be a board member of the Boys and Girls Club. I'm going to be really brief in my comments. One of our executive board members here, Mr. Cornelis, is here, and he'll speak to this as well. I just wanted to come and apologize to the Planning and Zoning Commission primarily. We didn't have anybody at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting when this was discussed, and that was on me. I was supposed to come, and I didn't. I just sort of forgot it and got lost in the summertime fray, and I wanted to apologize to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as my other board members. It was something that I was supposed to be here for, and I missed it. And so I just wanted to say I'm sorry for that. We should have had somebody here to discuss that. That being said, I hope that it's in no way a reflection of how the Boys and Girls Club views the Planning and Zoning Commission or our willingness to work with Planning and Zoning Commission or this body as well. I know that we're committed to making this a fantastic project and also committed to working with the Evensons, any of the stakeholders around to make sure that this is done right. And so any right-of-way vacations that we can get to expand our capacity, of course we want. But, you know, that said, we're willing participants. We really value the relationship that we have with the city. And, you know, for what it's worth, I did want to apologize. That was kind of on me, and I missed that meeting. So That's all I have. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Tungstad?
All right.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
I think we have Kyle Cornelius up next.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, Kyle Cornelis, City of Soldotna. I live in K Beach. I'm also the board secretary for the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Kenai Peninsula. I'll also be brief, just following up on Ryan's comments. I did come here today to testify in support of Resolution 2023-49 in its original form, and respectfully request that it not be amended. However, in light of the laydown and the request from neighbors for additional time, we're fully in support of that. It works without any problems with our timeline. Our objective is to work with the city, with neighboring property owners, and find a mutual alignment that works for everyone. The basic fact is we will be bursting at our seams. We haven't fully completed our master plan, but we do know that we're going to outgrow that facility very quickly, the property. So any square footage that we can develop and put to good use towards our mission would be very helpful. And if we can do that where there's excess right-of-way that the city does not need for their use, and access, prudent access, and availability for the neighboring properties is put together and insured, then whatever's left over, by all means, the club would love to include that in our right-of-way acquisition, the vacation through council, and put it to good use. So I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you. Councilman Axel.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cornelis, for coming tonight. Have you been involved in the development of the plat itself?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Well, I think the issue or the question has to do with the access, perhaps, or part of the access to the Evanston on the north side there. And since what I have is not to scale, do you have an idea how wide that access, before it drops down to
Sure.
the street?
Yep, absolutely.
what's
Yeah,
that?
the pinch point corner on the south end of the city donated land is about 40 feet. And originally we had considered requesting a access easement. We would do a right-of-way vacation all the way up to the top of that slope, and then provide a recorded access easement that would allow the club and the south property owner to work collaboratively with the development of that. It would be on private property then. It wouldn't be a right-of-way. I don't think the city intends to build a street accessing that private property, so it would be a parallel driveway at the top of the slope in the right-of-way. And working with the city administration and departments, they recommended that it be a right-of-way, which does afford maximum flexibility, I suppose, through the city later, and we agreed to that. And so the proposed plat moved that line over so that it would maximize the 40 feet from the corner of that south property to the top of the slope, all the way up to the existing driveway. And that's what you see before you in the packet today.
So it is 40 feet from the breaking point to the proposed edge of right-of-way?
I believe it's,
Roughly 40 feet.
I think it's about 39. Yes, sir. Yep. And that dictated the alignment that you see. You see that top corner on the 320 South Spruce Street where it intersects is exactly that 38.79 feet or 39 feet over. I'm looking at your packet, page 19. That's just the GIS overlay. The preliminary, or the proposed plat is on page 18. But we recognize that the property owner to the south would like some more time to analyze their needs and their proposed developments, and we're supportive of that.
Mr. Cornell, so we have a, from the planning and zoning, no objection to vacating that portion of Char Circle, but then amending to not include that section on South Spruce. And then, just to be clear, there's only one property owner south of the Boys and Girls Club property that we're.
That's correct.
That's correct. So if, and then we've got, in our laydown, we have an email from Taylor Evenson, who is the son of Thor, I think is the recorded owner of the property, where they do have I think a suggestion that they request more time. So if we postpone this, do you have a level of confidence that you guys will be able to, come to an agreement that would be acceptable to both you and the property owner?
Absolutely.
Okay. Further questions for Mr. Cornelis? Seeing none, thank you. Okay. I do see we have Taylor Evenson online here, and I don't know if I didn't look up there to see if we had comments for the during the hello Taylor. So I guess my question is probably the same one I had for Mr. Cornelis. If we postpone this, do you feel like you would be able to work out an acceptable agreement with the Boys and Girls Club that would come back before council?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I apologize that we didn't get this in front of us beforehand. We don't mean to delay anything. I think that, what they're trying to accomplish obviously is everyone's best interest and community's best interest. So we're all for it. I just got back from Bristol Bay, and my dad doesn't do email or internet, so we just didn't have a chance to really look at anything. And I think that the proposal that was suggested by, was it Mr. Corvallis, if there's some way that we could get together and talk and if there was a way that we could protect that easement and, work together in terms of creating something that would help both developments, ours definitely in the future, yours now, totally for it, totally for all that. And, we're happy about the Shar Circle situation. That seems very reasonable. And, as long as we're not, causing some nightmare for ourselves going forward, and then we're totally in support of giving as much land as possible to the Boys and Girls Club. We just need to, look into the details and the information on our end.
Very good. Fair enough. Thank you for that. Would you mind taking questions if any other council member has?
Oh,
any?
yeah, absolutely.
Any other
Sure.
questions for Councilmember Winger?
Thank you. Thank you, Taylor, for being here. It looks like with our next council meeting in 2 weeks, would that give you enough time to negotiate and talk with the Boys and Girls Club to come up with a plan? Or would you need like the first meeting of September to have adequate time to deal with this?
I think September might be a good time frame. It's possible that we could have it done in 2 weeks if we talk to them. I just, I'd like to kind of walk the property and get an idea of the surveyor's opinion and make sure that the topography is correct. I mean, the concern to me mainly is the sloping and, the access being pushed over towards the sloping and then, of course, the cost that might be incurred or increased by having to deal with that topography if we were to, have city required improvements in the future. So I think that would be our big question. I'm just not, I'm not real up to snuff on municipal, city or borough requirements for improvements for access. I would need some time to get, kind of a clear picture of what development requirements would look like based on what we would do in the future there. So a little extra time would be appreciated.
So, yeah, just for informational purpose, our first meeting in September would be September 6th, on Wednesday, September 6th. So.
If that works for everyone else, that'd be great. And once again, I don't know if you have to set it now, but I'm not trying to delay the Boys and Girls Club. So if 2 weeks or 4 weeks is a big difference for whatever they're trying to accomplish, I mean, we could try to move quicker. There's obviously want to see them go through with what they're doing.
Yeah, and I see Mr. Cornelis is nodding his head. That would seem acceptable to him, September 6th. So, okay, thank you. Any further questions of Mr. Evenson from council? Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys. Appreciate what everyone's doing here. I think it's a good thing. That's where we are on it.
Very good. Is there anybody else that would like to testify to resolution number 2023-49? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments from council. Councilmember Nackstead.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to postpone Resolution 2023-49 to our September 6th meeting to provide time for Mr. Evenson, the Boys and Girls Club, and our city manager to review and come back with any changes or comments.
I'll second.
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Councilmember Douthat?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2023-49 is adopted. And that brings us to item H7, which is a discussion. Let me pull this up in my packet here. Discussion, action, commission, committee, and council on aging direction. And so our clerk and I have actually sort of raised this issue to me a while ago, is there was probably a need to go through and develop a plan for our committee and commissions. There's times when we seem to be, our committee commissions seem to be a little bit adrift at times. Maybe it's that time to come up with maybe a reset or recalibration of what we'd like to see and what we'd expect out of our committee and commissions and council on aging. And what this would do would be basically define a process where we would ask them, which would start out with a survey of what they feel of their roles, and there's quite an extensive bit of information in the packet here, sort of regarding the reason, sort of trajectory and timeline of how we'd like to proceed with this, and it starts out with the value of each of the committee and commissions, and then their advisory roles, which is what they are, advisory to council, to the city. And then what we'd like to do is have them develop their tools that would be able to help them in their advisory capacity. So what we would do, and ideally we would want them to understand what the scope of their committee or commission is, and not only that, but what that scope, how it aligns with our city code, because that's what's established those committee and commissions in the first place. So it basically, it would assign their roles, their plans and policy and procedures of the city, and it would ensure that council and administration is aware of the work intended for the commission for the year ahead. And then the way this would work is that they would come up with a plan to start the year, and then a report at the end of the year, an annual report, which would highlight key accomplishments. It would identify completed projects and outlines of various activities of the year, and provides the opportunity for council to review the commission accomplishments and confirm that the work of the committee continues to align with their assigned role and work plans as approved by council. So what this plan would do is, starting in September or October, we would do an online survey that would be sent to all the committee, commission, and the council on aging that would help develop the coordination of, and this would be accomplished through the coordination of the administration, the clerk's office. Then we'd ask for 2 council members to volunteer to help on that committee. After the survey is complete, we'd compile that data and finalize a summary report of 5 years of action for each commission, and prepare their session packets. From there, from January, it'd go to each of the commissions would have a work session, which would review the past 5 years of commission actions taken, review Kenai Municipal Code to the applicable commission to make sure that they're all aligned with, and that they understand their role as it pertains to our code. They would review council adopted policies, that would be applicable to those commissions. And then develop any amendments to code or policy to be recommended for council approval that they feel might need to be tweaked to better align with the scope that they do. And then, of course, they would have a regular meeting to take a formal action that would come to us for approval. And then, of course, once it comes to us, we would discuss those recommendations on any code change or policy change and work to implement those or amend those as we see needed. And then, once that's done, they would have to develop their annual work plan. And what we'd like them to do also is to have a mission or vision statement and to develop with their annual work plan. So they would have this kind of overarching mission statement that applies to each of the commission and committees, council on agents separately. And then from there, they can prepare their annual plan. So what that does is that gives them, instead of, thinking of just week to week or, month to month, that it kind of gives that outlook the whole year of what they would like to accomplish. And then February or December of 2024, they would start working on their approved work plan and then go through that work plan, and by December have a final report, which again would identify the highlights and accomplishments of the committee. So that's the timeline. Sort of encapsulate what we like to accomplish, so we have better expectations of what we expect of our committee and commissions, but not only that, but what they would expect, that they know what those expectations are from council since they are advisory. With that, did I miss anything, Madam Clerk? Can I add? Yes, you can add.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So what I've been doing is researching and how to engage your boards and commissions, and I've been reading a lot on it, so much that it's advertisements on all of my web bases now. But what the intent here is to get higher engagement with our boards and commissions, really get them engaged. They're here to help us, and we want to get them involved. It's also going to provide more transparency between the commissions, the council, and the administration on what their goals are, and the public will be able to see better what the purposes are. Might get more applicants interested when they see the kinds of things that these guys are working on. It will make sure that our boards and commission goals align with their role as assigned in code. And the work session will give them an opportunity to take a deeper strategic look at their commission roles. And it will also give the council an opportunity to assess their performance and set governance goals for each board and commission. So if they come up with their work plan, which we provided templates out there in the packet, they come up with their work plan and it doesn't quite align, it gives the council the authority to bring it back to where they see the role of that board and commission at.
So any questions regarding how that timeline and what the expectation would like to see this implemented? Councilman Nexon?
Yeah, not so much on the timeline and all that. I was just wondering, the implementation of it, I mean, part of it's going to be through the clerk's office, probably that, but I mean, all the nuts and bolts of the work plan and all that, is that going to be, is the clerk and the attorney going to be involved somehow, or is that going to be just the directors, or all three, four? How do you do?
Thank you, through the mayor. Actually, Manager Eubanks and Attorney Bloom and I met and we discussed it, and we know as we roll this out, the administration, myself, the attorney, and the manager will be very involved in the initial process. But once we get this kicked off, it should be something that is very easily managed by the department director in the future, but we're going to be very involved with the initial process.
Councilman Winger?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I think this is a great step going forward to outline and hopefully get more involvement, as well as I think we have an attendance issue as well. So I think hopefully this will address the attendance issues that we see. I guess my question is, do we have a buy-in from the department heads? So specifically, like, say, Parks and Recs, that seems to be, they'll come up and be like, oh, we're doing this event, but Parks and Recs isn't part of the planning, and I'll use the kite event as an example. They weren't part of the event, they weren't part of the planning. They get something brought to them, but then they're not part of it. So If we do this, will there be accountability with those department heads to actually make sure that we're including them, saying, hey, we want to do an event, what's your feedback, what do you want to come up with, and be part of that event? Because it seems like there's been a lack of a buy-in almost.
Thank you. So the commissions will come up with a plan, and if it includes that, the council is going to have the advice from the administration, whether it's something we have the staff or the funding for the ability to uphold, and then the council can choose to include it in their work plan for the year based on the backup information that accompanies it.
Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of in response to your question, Councilmember Winger, you know, it's my expectation that if we go through this process and the goals and the plan of the commissioner committee align with their purpose and council approves it, that's clear direction to the administration to support and assist to make those things happen. So the expectation is, yes, I believe my department directors would be responsible then for supporting those commissions and committees to achieve their goals. I think this is beneficial from our standpoint because it provides us clarity as the administration in how we can better help them as well and more clearly defines exactly what we're working on. So I'm very supportive of this. Shelley, like Shelley said, we did meet and talk, and all three of us, city attorney, city clerk, and myself are very supportive of this process.
Further discussion? And the other thing, I guess we would, since there is 2 council members that would be assigned to this, would that be something we would do at the organizational meeting after the election?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So for the 2 council member involvement, we want their involvement with the establishing the questions, the survey questions. And when we get to the actual meeting and the work sessions, that would be the liaison's involvement at that level. So we want the survey questions to go out in November. So I guess we could wait until after the organizational meeting. And actually, no, we need to work on it sooner because those surveys going to go out at the very beginning of November. So they have 30 days to get their survey answers back to us.
Okay.
So we'll need volunteers sooner than that.
Okay. Are you looking for volunteers tonight? I guess that's where I'm going.
If you're interested, drop me an email and I'll take the first 2 that let me know they're ready.
Okay, very good. Okay, we can handle it that way. I guess that's what I want to do, is sort of clear that up. So is that an action item we need to vote on here, or is that?
It would help provide direction to the administration that you want us to move forward if we could have a motion and a vote on this.
Okay, Councilmember Jackson.
I move that council direct the administration to develop tools and methods to clarify roles and responsibility of the commissions and committees.
I'll second.
Discussion on the motion.
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, that motion is approved, and we'll work towards implementing that. Next up, we have item H8, discussion action, radio advertising. This was brought forward by Councilmember Dothett. Councilmember Dothett.
Yes, I guess we'll just bring it back for discussion on this. And I did have a laid out item that was put in there from Nathan Johnson, the radio, from the KSRM radio, about some information that he was able to gather on statistics and some of the points that had come up at the last meeting about using PSAs and those kind of things, if we had a chance to look at that or not. But he brought up a lot of interesting points. And one of the interesting ones is the borough just did their survey that they did this spring. And in that, one of the things that came up is 45% of the respondents said that they hear about borough information from radio, which I thought was a pretty large number that played into that. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm trying to work forward with possibly trying to consider some kind of an additional radio campaign for the city. I think it would reach a lot of people, and it might reach a new group of people that might not be getting what we're doing now. And I think it's worthwhile to try to reach as many people as possible and inform the community as much as possible, even if we just try it for a year and see how it goes. If it's unsuccessful or we don't see any benefit from them, we can reconsider next year, but it might be something to look into this year as a possible way to connect with the community better.
Councilmember Knoxon.
I was, $10,000 in the whole scheme of things, or whatever it's going to cost, maybe it's not a ton of money. But, we have had these conversations before, how to get more people to come to meetings or do all these various things. And it hasn't been, and I think the borough too, hasn't been particularly fruitful necessarily. But I was wondering how you might gauge success or failure or mediocrity or something like that. If we spend the money, how do we know?
I guess I would say just asking your constituents, ask the people that you talk to. Do they hear things? Did they see a benefit from it? Reaching out to the community, seeing what happens. I mean, do we get a positive feedback? I don't see the negativity about us advertising more and getting the word out of what's going on in the city. I don't see a bad thing occurring from this. I only see a benefit. As far as having a statistical number, I guess we could try to judge how many people come to the meetings and ask them in a survey form how they heard about us, or we could send some kind of a survey like the borough did, I guess, out to all the residents in the city and see after 1 year how they hear about city events and where they hear it from. I guess might be one way to do it. The borough did a pretty extensive survey on what they felt the needs were in the borough from their different people that live in the borough. I guess we could do something like that possibly in the future if we wanted to get statistical numbers like the borough did. But the borough has recently started a much more boisterous radio ad campaign just recently with the new borough mayor, and then the city of Slotina, of course, is doing one too. So I think they must be seeing some kind of a positive feedback from it, and that's kind of where the idea came from.
Further discussion? Councilmember Winger.
Just to be honest, I don't listen to the radio. And I don't read the paper. I don't know who does. It prints 2 days a week. So I don't get any of my information sourced from either one of those. We listen to streaming music in our vehicle. And like I said, we don't pay for online subscriptions or do it. I do like the fact that I believe Shelley has been adding our meetings and stuff to the online platforms. I do see those. But for me, print or radio is kind of pointless. I don't utilize either or see either of those. And I know a lot of people as well that don't listen to the radio. They listen to streaming music in their vehicles, and they don't read the paper. So I think, we're going to be maybe spinning our wheels either way of doing this.
Councilmember Sonard.
I have a slightly different opinion, given that Kenai is mostly a driving town as compared, say, to a town that's laid out for walking. We do a lot of driving, whether it's to work. A lot of us spend a lot of time in our cars, and I would guess that there is a percentage of people out there that listen to the radio. I listen to the radio. I hear borough announcements. I hear City of Soldotna announcements. Once in a while, I hear a PSA for Kenai about, they had a meeting last week and they did this and this. But I would say people probably spend more time in their cars listening to something as opposed to sitting down and actually reading a newspaper, whether it's a hard copy or online. And while I agree with Ms. Winger that there probably are a lot of people that listen to streaming music, but I would guess there's probably just as many that listen to the radio around here, because that's where I get a lot of my local information is from the radio, because a lot of us spend a lot of time in our cars going to and from work.
Councilmember Raskin.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I don't know if it's changed. My kids are all out of school now, but I know we depended on the radio to know whether buses were running or there was school or not school in the early morning. I would think we'd probably get a lot of school-age parents, school-age kids as parents that would be listening, so we might be hitting at least a specific group. But I think there's just as many people that listen to Sound Off or to the Talk of the Kenai in the afternoon. I think we've got a fair number of people that do listen to the radio.
Councilmember Dotham.
So, I mean, I guess to Councilmember Wingers, I guess, I don't know where you get your news from, but I think in this community, and from what I've done as a business owner, and I know talking recently to the chamber, since they've started doing a lot of radio ads and news things, the new director was really surprised at how much people listen to the radio and how much feedback she gets from the radio. And I know the number one thing that I've found out in this community in particular, I mean, between Facebook ads and social media and all that stuff, my number one successful ad campaign starting a new business was radio. That's where I got the most insight in this community. There's a huge amount of people that get a lot of information from the radio, and it's been, as a business owner side of things, my number one ad campaign comes from putting into the radio, because that's where I can see the most feedback from the community, and I think it reaches a lot of people. And in regards to different genres of people, yeah, they've got they can give you the different statistics on different radio stations, and yeah, Radio 920 is a totally different group of people than 106 or 96.5, or and you can kind of critique the different age groups that you want to get your message to. And one of these things that I found with our radio ads is that you can do 3 stations one month, and then I usually alternate one station every other month or every couple months and mix it up a little bit, so you're reaching more of those age groups. And I think it would be a good way for us to try to reach out to more people and get the word out there. And I don't see a negative impact coming from us trying to reach more people or getting the word out or having the ability. I mean, I see in our agenda, we're talking about voting, voter turnout. I think this would be a great idea. We could use some of this for possibly trying to get more voter turnout. I mean, these are just kind of the things that can come about, and we could utilize these ads for city issues that are coming about. And I think it would be a good idea to at least try it and go from there.
Councilmember Nexon.
It might work, and I think a lot of people that want to know, they pay attention. I do. And everybody here at the dais and whatnot, I find the information I need, and a lot of it's on Facebook. It might be from our city, things that are happening and all that, and I keep myself informed. Other people are informed also, but that's as far as it goes, and they're not here because that's why we have elected officials. We're handling it, and they're just aware, and we wouldn't know. And I think that'll continue, and I don't think that advertising necessarily is going to bring more people here or make more people vote. I think either people care to or they care not to, and it's their decision. I'm not saying, Alex, that it's a bad idea at all. I'm thinking that we might be spending money, and it may not go very far. I don't expect that it would. I did have a thought, and I think I suggested it at the last meeting, maybe, not that the mayor's not already busy, but putting the mayor to work a little more in addition, where what used to happen, and the KSRM has not had a news director until recently for months, maybe 6 months, I'm not sure. And so they've been shorthanded, I believe, in that respect. But what happened before that would be that somebody from KSRM or the news department would contact a city official, maybe the mayor, and find out what's going on in the packet coming up, and then maybe some other information. And that was widely on the radio. It didn't cost anything. It sounds like a PSA, but it also sells their time too, as far as, they have interesting things, I suppose. And I'm just wondering if that wouldn't be another avenue we could explore. Of course, I'm offering you up, Mayor. Mm-hmm. If that's something that you might want to inquire to see if they're interested in continuing that.
Yeah, as far as that goes, I'm up for anything. I don't really mind going on there, even going on, Sound Off or Talk the Kenai or any of the other programs that talk things, the Kenai issues. I'm thinking more of like, in just so everybody knows, there was the memo included in the packet from administration that was basically saying that our public notice requirements in advertising are currently being met, and that's not really needed as, at this time for those purposes. Now, on the other hand, we have events at the Kenai Arts Center, let's say, or the Kenai Library, or other things that are going on, the Kite Festival, or things like that, our goal or role here should be to bring people into Kenai, because if they come to Kenai to go to the Kenai Arts Center, they might stop by, a business in Kenai and spend money. So that's what we should be working on. I'm sort of on the fence here as far as how this goes. I know it may not necessarily need to be a administration. I guess my question would be for Terry, with them sort of providing the content for this, as if this would be, problematic to, let's say, throw during their department head meetings to ask, if there was any department that wanted to highlight an activity or an event that was going on, and doing that, along with other things that are going on, like, cleaning sewer lines and stuff that's not that glamorous and maybe wouldn't bring people to Kenai, but are, important things to know as, for the community to have. So I guess if we went with, there's several different scenarios here, I guess, with different price tags for the amount of advertising you have. I mean, if we started out at the lowest cost there, first of all, as far as the budget goes, is that going to be a problem, number one? But number two, as far as fulfilling the content for the number of ads, do you see that as a problem, Mr. Eubank?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't necessarily see it as a problem. I think what needs to be clarified for the administration is, as we highlighted in the memo, there are certain legal requirements that we have to meet for public noticing. Some of these are under state statute. Some of these are within municipal charter. Some of these are within municipal code. And our ability as a city is limited. Council can do what it wants with municipal code. Municipal charter amendments would require a vote of the people to be ratified, and so on and so forth. So I think what really needs to become clear for the administration is, what is the expectation for public meeting notices and things like that you would like us to start utilizing radio for? Once we have that information, no, I don't think it would be tremendously burdensome for department heads to be able to submit going-ons in the city that we may want to promote and get on. I can't tell you which package we need until council can tell us, as far as the public meeting notices and things like that, what your expectation is. And I think I would go so far as to say I think that probably should be codified within code to define exactly what we want provided with public notice if we're going to use radio, so that we're not picking and choosing or being accused of picking and choosing what we choose to put on the radio. I think it needs to be very consistent and very clear. And I think Shelley probably would weigh in on that.
Ms. Sainer.
Thank you. Through the mayor, if we were to advertise meetings, it would be simply a notice of meeting. We could not call out one specific agenda item without violating the continued regular thing. So it would simply be noticing the date, time, and place of the meeting. And if we wanted to do the agenda, then we would have to pay for time for them to read every item on the agenda and to stick in compliance with state laws.
Councilor Winger.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I appreciate this conversation that we've had on this. I would like to see an ordinance or something come forward that would be better laid out, especially since we're talking about switching our public notices and we're talking about allocating money for that. I don't want to sit up here and say, yes, let's go to radio advertisements when there's multiple different proposed costs. So I don't want to sit here and say, yes, let's spend $10,000 on radio advertisements while we're still spending $10,000 with the Clarion. So I would like to see an ordinance or something coming forward that would be better lined out, especially since we are talking about funding.
Councilmember Dothett?
I guess there's a little confusion. I don't think we were talking about canceling the paper, because that still meets our notification requirements. This would be in addition to that. So even if these ads didn't notify on meetings, and we just said, okay, fine, we're not going to notify about meetings, we're going to do all the other things we're talking about, and we just notified in paper, we'd still be meeting that. We would have to adjust our code to say our meetings would be notified for in paper and on radio. Is that correct? We would need, before we notified online, we need to adjust our code or modify our code to meet the state where it says media or radio.
Yeah, and in the memo that we put together, it identifies there are multiple places in our code that requires publication for public hearing. So it would need to address everything that requires public notice if that was the intent of using radio advertising to notice our public hearings. And there are quite a few. We could probably utilize the entire time for every object that if we were to notice our public hearings on radio.
So with that in mind, adding an additional 10,000 or whatever choice, I won't be in favor of making that decision through a discussion. I believe it should be brought forth in an ordinance. That way we can get the adequate public input on that as well. And that way a solid plan brought forth of one or all of the options. But I don't feel that to sit here and approve spending 10,800, 6,000, 5,400 in a discussion, I don't feel is appropriate without some sort of ordinance and more outline for administration.
Further discussion? Oh, okay. Oh, notice that Vice Mayor Basin is online. He's joined us now. I agree with Councilmember Winger. I think this is something that should be a little bit fleshed out. If we're meeting our notification requirements currently in however we're doing print, and I don't know if we really want to stray from that. I see more, like I said, if the value of this, in my mind, is more for highlighting things that are going on in the city, whether that is something that we want to spend the money on, and as I said, to bring people to the city. I would like to know how administration would handle that, and how they would like to, sort of, fill that content, I guess, would be the best way to say it. And I don't know if, that may need to be codified, but it is, there should be public hearing on this as far as, which we're not doing. It's just an discussion action item, but a public hearing that would, further allow us to make a better decision, I believe. Councilmember Dothett?
I would be more than willing to write something up with staff, and I don't know if we'll be able to get it done before next meeting, but maybe by our September meeting and get something down on paper. If that would make more clarification, I'll gladly meet with staff and we'll figure something out.
Okay. I see Terry nodding his head. Do we need a motion for that, for direction? I think we've already kind of agreed with that. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to, we've got committee reports up next. Council on Aging. Councilmember DeSonart.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So Council on Aging met last month on July 13th, and it was a work session, and they reviewed their 2023 survey results. It was a client satisfaction survey, and they went through and they discussed each part of the survey. Questions like activities you participated in, how often do you eat at the Kenai Senior Center, how often do you receive home-delivered meals, please rate the quality of meals that you receive, do you use Kenai Senior Center transportation services, et cetera, and went through. What I found really interesting about this whole thing, I'm going to back up to this one little chart here. There was one day I decided to eat lunch at the senior center, so my husband and I go, and I don't remember what day of the week it was, but we had no clue of what the menu was. It just worked into our schedule, and we said, let's go have lunch at the senior center. We pull in, there's no parking. Absolutely no parking. I mean, we had to park on the side somewhere and like hike back. And I'm thinking, what's going on? I should know if there's like a dignitary or somebody speaking here. I should have known about this. We get in there and I'm looking around for the speaker, and it's like just a regular lunch day. They're serving liver and onions.
Liver and onion day.
Who knew? And so in the survey here, what is your favorite meal served? 49% of everybody who took the survey was liver and onions. Fried chicken was 15%, and Mexican food was 11%. I don't know what the deal with liver and onions is, but I've seen it for myself, and now I've heard it in the work session. The next work section is next Thursday, and I believe our Public Works Director, Scott Curtin, will be there doing a question and answer session with them about projects coming up. So that should be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sonart. Airport Commission.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. July 13th, the Airport Commission met in a work session and visited with City Manager Eubank on expectations or qualifications that the commission would like to see for the airport, new airport manager position. Our next meeting is August 10th.
Thank you, Harbor Commission.
We have a meeting coming up, I believe, on the 7th. I had to check my date. Monday, yeah. So that'll be the first one in a while.
Very good. Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Sonart, yesterday was Liver and Onions Day also, but I couldn't get from where I was to there early enough to be able to get in, I figured, so I didn't make it. But anyway, you're absolutely correct. I keep trying to make it. Parks and Rec is short. They canceled their meeting tomorrow, and their next meeting will be September 7th.
Very good. Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I want to apologize for my absence today. I'm battling some back issues and actually just slept through the beginning of the meeting. So I don't have my notes in front of me. I did attend the meeting last week for planning and zoning, and I know they did make some action improvements for you guys to that was probably presented to you, and I'll be at their next meeting. Nothing else to share.
Thank you, and hope you feel better, and hopefully it doesn't affect your golf swing, Vice Mayor Bazin.
It absolutely does.
Beautification Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Beautification has not met over the summer. Their next meeting will be September 12th.
Very good. Next up, we have a report of the mayor, and I don't have a lot to report on. Just been kind of enjoying the summer, although normally I'd be set netting this time of year. We'd be pretty well into it, and we haven't set a net at all. We've been totally shut down, which has been a little bit frustrating. I did want to start out by saying I appreciate all the work of the department heads. If you look in our packet, you'll see the very comprehensive mid-month reports that were submitted by our department heads, and I just want to take a moment and thank you guys for that, keeping us informed. I did attend the dog park ribbon cutting. We've made it to that point, and so it was last Friday, I believe it was. We had some last minute touches on the park there. Actually, Mayor Porter had asked me to build a fence that would go over there's a mural on, as you walk in there, there's a sort of a pavilion, and that separates the big, it's got a gate, it's like a sally port. You go in there and you can shut the gate and then open the gate for either on the small dog side or the large dog side. And on that pavilion, there's a mural that Jennifer Jonas and I think Lena Wismer painted. And then over that, they wanted this fence put up, and then some dogs kind of looking over the fence. So I think it turned out very, very nice. And I will say that, this was a journey. Obviously, there was a history behind how this sort of evolved with an initial donation to a group of community members to clear and grub some land and then put a fence around it. From there, we expanded the footprint. The city came involved. Mr. Curtin got involved in his department, Public Works, the Parks and Rec Department were over there hard at work putting that together. I will say thank you guys for the amount of work and the efforts you put into that, because at the end of the day, it's something that I think if we're going to put our name in, it needs to be a pretty nice facility. And I would say that I think it, I might be a little partisan here, but I think it's got Soldotna's beat. So if there's a lot of people are listening, maybe you can come over to Kenai and compare the two. No offense to Mr. Cornelis sitting here, but it did turn out pretty nice, and I'm happy the way it did turn out. So with that, I will go to administration report. City Manager, Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Got a few things since we haven't met in about a month. First, I wanted to introduce to council Mr. Dave Swarner, city's new finance director. Today was Dave's first day. The human resource director informed me yesterday that the position had been vacant for like 239 days, but who was counting? So super excited to have Dave on board, and looking forward to working with him. As everybody knows, DipNet did conclude on Monday. I think we had a successful season. Revenue-wise, I can report that we were about 3,000 less than what we projected for budget, so really close on budget. Staff are still tearing down, cleaning up, and debriefing and looking for ways to improve for next year. On the Old Town Playground project design, we had another meeting this week of the committee. We looked at 4 different kind of crayon type schematic layouts and provided comment, and the designer is going to go back and kind of assimilate all of those ideas into a hopefully a final kind of concept. So that project's moving along relatively well. Next thing I'd like to say is I found this interesting. In 2021, it was reported that there were no more memorial plaques available in the Leif Hansen Park here in town. And Shelley actually kind of brought it up, and I've been working with Mr. Curtin and Mr. Best to look at that over there, and I think there is potentially some opportunities that we can provide more plaques in there. It's going to take some potentially saw cutting of concrete and things like that, but I think there's room. And if there's not, there's actually an old plan where some additional sidewalk was laid out that we could ratchet up a capital project in the future to go ahead and install. So we're kind of revisiting that and seeing what's really there and what's available, and because we have had some interest, some folks call and they're being told there aren't any available, and I think we can maybe make it happen, and I'd like to see it happen. So that's something we are working on, and Shelley's been a great help in that. This is pretty exciting. Mr. Curtin applied for a state grant through the, actually it's a loan, through the Drinking Water Fund. It's a revolving fund managed by DEC. We were on the award list. We got notice yesterday of a $1.2 million loan to the city for construction of a pump house at our water treatment facility. What's exciting about the loan offer is it comes with 100% forgiveness. So it's the loan that everybody'd like to get. Why I bring that up is to recognize the efforts of Mr. Curtin in applying for that and say thank you. But also, I've been working with the city attorney, and he's requested a opinion from bond counsel on whether or not a loan to the city with 100% forgiveness triggers our provisions in charter and in code requiring a vote before the city can incur debt. Depending on what happens with that, we're hoping to have that opinion by next week. We could be putting together a proposition to be placed on the October ballot to authorize the city to incur that debt. So I didn't want anybody to be surprised, but it kind of came last minute. We had no notice that this was coming out. So we are working through that, and we'll see where that ends up. I also wanted to report that yesterday, the Alaska Division of Forestry requested a Type 6 vehicle and crew from the Kenai Fire Department be dispatched to Fairbanks to work on some wildfires that are happening up in Fairbanks right now. I think Forestry had released a lot of Alaskan crews, and they're pretty short-handed up there right now. I met with Chief Pryor and Deputy Chief yesterday. I had some concerns. They had all the right answers. This morning we did dispatch a crew of 3 in one of our vehicles to head to Fairbanks for the next 2 weeks to assist. All costs of that will be reimbursed to the city, including any overtime we incur backfilling our station for the vacancies by those 3 individuals. So just trying to be a good neighbor here in Alaska, and I think it's important. So that crew is heading up there today. The mayor did report about the dog park, and I just want to say thank you to all the volunteers that worked on that and city staff. It really does represent a community project after it all came, and I think it looks really nice over there as well. So last Friday, July 28th, was Airport Manager Conway's last day with the city. Mary Bondurant, our former airport manager, is the interim manager at this point. Mary's over there. We have the application period's been extended for that position, but we are reviewing. We've scheduled 5 interviews next week with applicants, so we're going to keep working through that process and hopefully get a permanent airport manager here in the not too distant future. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Sonart.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. What is the status of the repair of the fountain in the park?
Mr. Eubank.
Mr. Best, could you?
Yeah, so we recently replaced the pump in it, and it was a water issue, and I need to email or talk to Public Works and get that on there. But the pump is working, but we were having some water issues. So that's what's going on right now with that. But I don't have an estimated time of like when it will be fixed. But we are currently trying to identify the problem with the fountain.
Thank you.
Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Thank you, Mr. Eubanks, for your report. Thank you, Scott, for looking for that funding. I just want to touch on that forestry and sending a crew up. I came back Friday from that area, Monday. I left Friday, came back Monday, and just from Friday to Monday when we went up there was a fire, but on Monday when we came back, I think they reported like 14 new fires up in that area, 2 specifically by Nenana. It was complete smoke coverage for all the way through the Denali Valley. I know they're doing evacuations in multiple communities. We've been very fortunate this year to not have any major fires down in our area, and I just think it's great that we're able to assist and send crews up, and even more that any incurred costs get reimbursed.
Any other questions, City Manager? Councilmember Nexon.
I don't think I heard anything about the bluff erosion project. The questions I've been getting lately, are we about to bid that?
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, I apologize. I am supposed to report on that every meeting. I don't have a lot to report. We have been working with the Corps. We just yesterday concurred with a closeout of one of the design cost centers. I'm not sure the correct Corps term for it. I think these are the final steps in preparation for signing of the PPA agreement. The last schedule that I've heard from the Corps now on the PPA, which we were hoping to sign in late May, early June, is late September to October signing of the PPA. Probably bids released late in 2023 here. I think some of the core process has been slowed down a little bit by change of command. We do have a new commander here in Alaska of the Corps, took over June 1st or July 1st, I believe. We have met with them, and they did assure us that control of the PPA is now with the Alaska district, so they have full control of the document here, and so the execution of it's on their timeline, and we continually press to keep that moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Eubank. Any further questions? And I just did want to point out, since we have Mr. Twain here, that they actually, his company did build the pavilion, and that turned out very nice in the dog park. And then one other thing I forgot to add is that when you walk in and look in that mural, all of the donors and people that donated to that park are on a tree there, so they're all listed in there. So again, thanks for the folks that supported that community effort. With that, we don't have a city attorney here this evening, so we'll go to our city clerk, Ms. Sainer.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So the student rep applications went out to our 3 schools today. I asked I saw activity, so I know that the teachers are back in there, and asked that they let me know when the applications will be distributed to students so we can get a timeline for when we expect to see those back, so we can make some student representative appointments. Next item is, since we have the online cemetery going, Gary Greenberg, our GIS technician, has volunteered his time to work with us on a project to get all of the markers imaged so we can associate them on the map and in our files here. We are working on a date of September 8th, and we're going to keep it a small group because of software licensing. But we have 2 volunteers from the beautification committee. We haven't heard back from the parks committee. I will take 2 council volunteers for this. Let me know. And I'm going to reach out to the Historical Society to see if they have people that they want to help, and also the local veterans, because they do know where our veterans' graves are, and they might want to associate it with a flag or something in the photograph. And then the next one is, in early July, I sent you all a memo about the borough resolution regarding the election advisory vote. That resolution that item failed to adopt at the borough council meeting, or assembly meeting last night. However, they did have a resolution that was adopted that forms a voter turnout working group to explore action and ideas to increase voter awareness. The working group is intended to include the city clerks. The assembly will be making the appointments in September, and I will bring forward a proper item if the council wishes to appoint me to that working group. And the candidate filing period is now open. It's open through August 15th at 4:30, and then at 5 p.m. that night, we will be having the public ballot name placement procedure that the public and the candidates are invited to attend. And I'm available for questions.
Questions of the city clerk? Thank you. Next up, we have additional public comment. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to address the council at this time? Ms. Nelson.
Forgot my paper at home. I made a very fast, illegally fast run back and forth, and I still got here a few minutes late, so I apologize for that to the general public more than anything. So at the Kenai Fine Arts Center, the Kenai Arts Center, not Fine Arts Center, Kenai Arts Center, we have a couple things going on that are worth noting for everybody. For one thing, the next show that has the first Friday opening this Friday is Susan Watkins. Susan's background is certainly a little different decidedly different than the rest of us on the board, for instance, at the Art Center, but also the general public. She has worked for, not my brain, Bass Sport Shops. And you know the artwork and the mural work that is with Bass Sport Shops, that's the kind of work she does. She has done those murals. And so her work reflects that, as well as other not indoor, but many outdoor kinds of scenic images. She has a lot of them. The gallery is full. They're very saleable. She always sells a lot of paintings, artwork at her shows or whenever she participates in shows. They're definitely worth taking a look at. They're fun to look at. They're great works, and she puts in a lot of effort too. Great person. The other thing is a new to us that we will have on the 12th. The Encore Dance Studio, located in Kenai, used to be called the Master Dance Studio. Sorry. That, God, history. Katrina Carpenter and Tara Phillips are the owners / dance instructors. They brought over a group of their students to rehearse for the dance production they're going to do on the 12th from 2 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. There's about 6, 7 gals of varying ages who will be dancing in the main studio, and they'll come out of the back room, the jail room. And we've also put some pedestals in the middle of the room near the pole or various places in the corner as well as the middle. And they have figured out choreographed a program just for that particular room. So it's just something new. It's free to the public. You can certainly make a donation if you want to, but it's a neat way to further use the Arts Center. And then also reminding you that the Kenai Visitor Center is also having a First Friday art show featuring Laura Dewey, and we certainly want to emphasize that this emphasizes First Friday in Kenai. We're state of Alaska, First Friday, or art galleries, I should say, downtown Anchorage, Fairbanks, wherever, it's all First Friday. So we are now more in tune with the rest of the state than we have been, and that we have both of us working together on this. And then at the end of September, we have our annual Harvest Art Auction, and the tickets always sell out, or the event always sells out, so they will be available pretty soon. And any questions from anybody?
What was the date of the harvest auction?
I don't remember them. It'd be the last Saturday, Friday or Saturday.
Of September, right?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Any questions of Ms. Nelson? Thank you, Mary.
I would remind you all that KDLL, Public Radio 91.9, is also in Kenai. It's also where you have the Burroughs program played every week, every other week. And all the media has extensive stats on what listens, who listens, when they listen. You don't have to figure that out, just look it up. Having worked in media a bunch in the past. Anyway, excuse me.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Is there anybody else from the general public that would like to address the council? Mr. Swanson, good to see you.
Thank you for a few minutes of time. I just wanted to, a couple things. First, I'll update everyone on the projects I was working on for Pita Pit with trying to bring it to Kenai. My original plan, how I wanted to do it, does not work for Pita Pit Corporate with our franchise agreement. So I'm back to the drawing boards, which is why I was here tonight with the young gentleman who was with me who's taking over the lease on the car wash property. So I'm stepping back from that, or I've stepped back from that, but I've not stepped back from the idea of wanting to bring my concept to Kenai. So as an open invitation to anyone, if you've got a good property potential, I'm looking on a daily basis and have been for quite some time. It has to be one where it fits my needs, fits Pita Pit Corporate's needs, and then fits the city of Kenai's needs. And it's finding that perfect sweet spot. So I just wanted to come and just thank all of you for your time when we looked at this previously last fall or whenever that was. And just update you on where I was at with that.
Thank you for that, Mr. Swanson. Questions? I see Councilmember Winger has her light on.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson, for coming and giving that update. I've honestly been looking for your Pita Pit cart. So are you looking to bring your mobile cart somewhere or a brick and mortar location?
Yes.
Brick and mortar?
No, both.
Both.
Either way. I'm open to whatever fits me and fits the city. So with the benefit of my food trucks is I already have a blanket approval to operate those anywhere on the Kenai Peninsula with my franchise agreement. Unless another Pita Pit franchisee comes in the market, and then that would change. But for right now, I can operate them anywhere from Seward to Homer and everything in between. So I have a lot of flexibility with where to operate those. The challenge I have is how to operate those. Specific to having utility hookup is really the big thing. It's difficult to drive them every day because I have to have either me or either me or my son-in-law have to come and drive the vehicles, versus somewhere I can park it, plug in, hook up to power, and potentially a water source, and then a way to run off gray water as well. Lets me literally hand keys to employees to show up, which is it's a game changer if we can do it that way. So, food truck I would love to do. By doing it that way, we really are only looking at the summer months plus a little extended time. Brick and mortar would be the ideal that we'd like to grow to, and that was the plan that I had. Was brick and mortar, or converting into brick and mortar, starting with the smaller structure to grow to a bigger structure. The original structure, kind of, the idea was to think coffee truck, but on a little bigger scale, where it'd be like a drive-through pickup only, with the idea of expanding in the future to add lobby space, or the design of the building would be done that way. The Pita Pit corporate guys don't understand the idea of coffee shops and how they work in Alaska, or how well they work in Alaska. So it's hard for them to wrap their mind around. But the interesting thing to me is if I park a food truck in the exact same spot that I would put this coffee stand type thing, they're totally okay with that. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Thank you. I would definitely would like to see you guys land in Kenai as well. So I will definitely be keeping an eye out for something that might fit your needs, and hopefully the rest of us do too. I'd like to see something more permanent in Kenai.
I would love to. I would love to have that. I mean, and honestly, my ideal thing is would be something where I'd actually be able to buy an existing building and just do a little bit of modification to it, potentially with some tenants in it, kind of like what the car wash property had to begin with. It doesn't. The logistics of that don't work well for what I'm trying to do, but the concept of that is the right thing.
Any further questions? First thing I think came to mind is I know Casix is looking at building on, bridge access roads, so that might be an option for getting with them at Glassens there. And
yeah, I came in and talked with City Manager Eubank here a couple weeks back. I don't remember when it was, and we had just kind of looked at the map and different ideas. And one of the areas we talked about was the that expansion going down to City Dock area there. So, like I said, I'm open to anything if it makes sense.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your interest in Kenai, certainly.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the general public that'd like to speak to council at this time? Mr. Cornelis.
Red, there we go. So that everybody can get to sunny and beautiful Soldotna Creek Park on a Wednesday. Just kidding. No, as a Kenai kid with a mom who is a little widow here in Kenai off South Forest, I do get to hear some comments from her, and hopefully she is not doing too much outreach, having some knowledge of the inner workings of the city, but she does. She lets me know that when she does reach out, that she has had great relationship with city employees that are responding, whether it's streets department, parks department, things like that. She lives in a little retired kind of street, and they are. I hope she exercises restraint when reaching out, and I think she does. But when there's a street light out, there's not an urgency to it, but it gets taken care of, or some beach stuff and things like that. So just figured I'd take this opportunity since I was here to provide that feedback. So certainly an asset.
Thank you. Any questions? I know certainly from, I think we view ourselves as in the customer service business, and it's always nice to get that feedback instead of, the other side of it.
Yeah, and she's been here for, 50 years or so, and so she's, it's still been really positive for her. So
awesome. Thank you, Kyle. Is there anybody else from the general public that'd like to address the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll go to council comments. We'll start with Vice Mayor Bazin online.
Mayor. Nothing to add. Again, I just want to apologize to the council for my absence tonight. I'll do better next meeting.
Thank you. Councilmember Dothett.
Well, a few things. I would just like to say, I think the dip netting fishery went off really well this year. I made a point of going down there a few different times, purposely during the insanest parts of the weekends, just to see how it worked, because I have not actually set foot down there in years. I think the new bypass lane seemed like it worked really well, kept things flowing. There was very few what I would call pinch points, and I really think it went well, and I was pretty pleased at how clean it was down there, considering the sheer quantity of people and what was going on down there. And I think it went really well. I think it's a huge improvement from what it was 10 years ago for what we have got going on now. It's getting streamlined and better every year. There's always going to be ways to improve, and people are always going to have opinions that it's just out of control, but it's kind of controlled chaos now, it seems like, and it's getting to be more of a streamlined, and people are starting to understand it's just kind of a thing we're going to have to get used to. And I really want to say thank you to the city staff and for everybody that took care of that, and I think it went really well. To reiterate, the first Friday, Samantha wasn't able to make it tonight, but she wanted me to reiterate that art show is coming up, and then starting in January, they're going to have one every month with a new artist each month. So it's kind of a new thing that they're pushing through, and it's going to be. Sounds like they got a lot of good feedback. A lot of people have already signed up for it, and sounds like it's going to fill up quick. So, other than that, I hope everybody had an exciting and busy and fun-filled July. I know it was quick, a whirlwind for me. It's amazing it's already August, but snow's just around the corner, right? Yay.
Councilmember Sonart. It's a tough act to follow.
Thank you for that cheery note, Councilmember Dothett. I want to thank everybody involved with the dog park. Our Public Works Director, Scott Curtin, and all the work you guys did to level that out and to mitigate the swampiness there, the French drain, and getting everything to level out and to drain, and to Tyler Best, Parks and Rec, for your work and your staff's work there, and to the volunteers who, years ago, 5-6 years ago, had the vision for a community dog park and had the tenacity to hang on and to push it through and to see it through and to keep going until it actually evolved into a full community project. And it was pretty cool. I was able to take my dog there Saturday morning, and it was a delight to be able to stay right here in Kenai. So, yay, Kenai.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoskin.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Thank you, Scott, for acquiring our loan. That's pretty awesome. And to the entire staff that worked on the fishery, this is the first year I think that I have not witnessed back up onto the highway on Bridge Access Road, so that was pretty cool. And it seemed a lot less crazy this year than it has in the past. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I'd like to apologize for my in-person absence at our last meeting. My mother-in-law had passed away 2 days prior to that, so we were just flushed with family coming in and trying to organize everything for that. I am, for one, glad dip netting is over. I am glad I can drive on the roads and get somewhere at a faster time and safely. I just would like to mention the amount of boats that come through this town. I think one day alone we counted 20 ratchet straps on the ground. And so that's always interesting. You can always tell when the fish are hitting by how many straps are just laying out on the highway. Just remind people that school starts back up here on August 15th. I'm hoping Chief Ross will be extra patrolling and making sure people are being cautious on the drag strip going out of Kenai. Just want to plug it out there so people are cautious around bus stops. The dog park does look great. I'm glad to see we have a great finished product. There's going to be a little bit of growing pains, a little kinks, but I know Tyler's on it, and we'll get that lined out for everyone. We are looking forward to the Silver Salmon Derby coming up here, and the Kenai River Marathon. That's always a great turnout. If you're not involved, I encourage you to get involved. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Naxa.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, Mr. Swarner, to the city of Kenai. We've been waiting for you for 239 days. Where have you been? Welcome. Oh, be by to meet you more formally, but glad that you're here. Regarding the boat, the dip net fishery, I used the boat ramp for the first time ever during the fishery. I've always had other, and I thought, well, here we go, and actually it went very well, and it wasn't particularly busy either, but everybody that I met along the way that was working, and this was on the 25th actually, so I'd been a little while into it, so they had time to be tired or whatever, but very professional all the way in, and pulling back out the same thing, very helpful and everything. It was a very good experience for me. And I appreciate that. I just wanted to pass that on. And another thing too, during that fishery time, I had family here from North Carolina and Texas, kind of together, showing them around, all that kind of stuff, as you might show people the sites and whatnot. And they were impressed with our little town. And the first thing they really said was, well, it was really clean here. It's really a nice, clean, town. And I guess we could say Parks and Rec had a lot to do with that, because that's where I was taking them to those kind of places, but all around, and so they were impressed with that. So I think that's something good to pass on, and that's all I've got.
Thank you. Tonight, we have no executive session or pending items, and seeing no other business before this body, we are adjourned.
Goodbye.